the Division of Magnetic Resonance of the German Chemical Society unanimously decided on January 20th, 2023 to confer the Otto-Stern Award 2023 to Professor Dr. Jean Jeener in Brussels. The Otto-Stern Award is presented to Professor Jean Jeener in recognition of the invention of the two-dimensional NMR spectroscopy. Professor Jeener invented two-dimensional NMR spectroscopy and first formulated the two-pulse experiment, which has been named COSY by Richard Ernst later on. Together with Richard Ernst, he developed the NOESY and the EXI experiments, both theoretically and experimentally. After more than 50 years, polarization transfer via J-couplings as well as transfer via relaxation phenomena and exchange are still cornerstones of NMR spectroscopy for chemical analysis and for life and material sciences. Professor Jean Jeener's work shaped the NMR spectroscopy that we know today. In Brussels, April the 15th, 2023, the chair of the society. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Well, this pleases me especially because my father was a biologist, and he was interested in everything that had to do with the structure of, the structure of proteins.
Yeah.
So it pleased him very much that progress was being made, and all those that I was responsible for at least part of it.
The question would be, I mean, you proposed in 1971 at this NATO workshop in Basco-Polje the first two-dimensional experiment. And my question is, where did you have the idea? How did you have the idea? Was it under the shower? Was it in a discussion with the student? Was it, I don't know, when you were outside in the park and just dreaming about things? What gave you that idea, or how did it arise?
I tried to prepare I would say a realistic answer to that question. And it took me a long time to put together the piece of information which, in my mind, created favorable circumstances to have the good idea. And that's that's a very long story, which to a certain extent looks like my life before Basco-Polje. Now, I'll try to keep that reasonably compact.
We have no limit of time.
Well, as I told you, my father was a professor of biology, and at the meals, at least at the lunch, at home, he always explained what he had found interesting in the literature that day, or what kind of experiment he planned to do, and things like that. And among other things, he knew very little mathematics, really surprisingly little, because at the time where he was a student, the students in zoology, that's what he studied, were deemed to need absolutely no mathematics. So by the middle of high school, I started knowing enough additional mathematics to help him on various details. And so he explained to me in detail what his problems were. And in many cases, I could see possibilities to solve the technical and experimental problem by constructing some elementary electronic circuit. To give you an example of the really beginning, in biology, in many cases, you want to keep constant the temperature of your sample. For that, you have a thermostat. And so I could think about the problem for a long time, and I was impregnated with the various ideas. And that has been a boon in my further work and contact with other people, because when I was with Bill Bloomberg, I could make contact with many different laboratories just because I knew enough electronics to debug all sorts of problems related to electronics. For instance, when a new instrument like frequency freeze-dialer came in the lab, in Bloomberg's lab, the first thing I did was to take the instruction manual, and by that time the instruction manual contained complete details for the circuit, and for this I cooked up a method in which you give one, you let the system come to ordinary equilibrium in high field, you give a first 90-degree pulse, you wait for a short time, you give a second pulse that's phase shifted by 90 degrees, and you get a situation in which you have a lot of dipole energy. Two pulses with control over the phase of one pulse compared to the other one. Without Fourier transforms being interesting, because for these very simple problems of NMR in solids, what you are interested in is the pulse response, not its Fourier transform, which is uninteresting. But in the back of my mind, I looked at everything that was happening in NMR. And I was somewhat distressed by the complexity and lack of adaptation of the double resonance technique for unraveling problems of molecules which are bigger than very small ones. But nothing clear appeared, so I proposed to one of the students who wants to make a PhD with me to just take the example of a molecule, liquid, of a molecule that would be, I would say, simple enough to make detailed calculation, detailed explicit calculation possible, but not too simple.
Mm-hmm.
So you chose something, and he looked for the two-pulse response. And well, if we contemplated playing some kind of Fourier transform game, the perspective of doing that seemed just pure wishful thinking, because the amount of data you had to manipulate, to just hope to have the beginning of something interesting was just much more than any computer at that, any reasonable sized computer at that time could manipulate. So, well, you were a little bit desperate, but still I found the idea interesting, and possibly useful, although it was a pure dream.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to present the idea at the Pionier summer school.
Mm-hmm.
And there, a number of people were much more optimistic about what could be done, each with the idea that, okay, computer technology is improving at a fast rate, and let's prepare to use the dream technology of within 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing happened with Ernst, who got the idea from
A student, yeah. Baumann, I think, was Baumann was a student, yeah. Mm-hmm.
who took
The notes.
at Pionier. And when I streamed photocopies of these notes later on, I was very impressed by the quality of his notes.
Mm-hmm.
Taking care of, taking notes for something which probably lasted 20 minutes or something like that, and having all of the important points clearly indicated.
So did you try any experimental implementation of the idea after the presentation?
We made an attempt, but you should realize that I have never done NMR on molecules in liquids.
Mm-hmm.
So I had no practice of anything.
Mm-hmm.
Apodization and all of these details which are necessary to end up with the usual results were not known to me.
Mm-hmm.
So we made an attempt. We could see that in a 2D plot, very noisy. The noise, there was a hum in the noise at the places where it would be expected, and where it should not, there should not have been no hum, while there was no obvious hum. But my impression was, if we published that will kill the proposal. Because people will say, if that's what you can achieve, forget about it. So I didn't publish anything, and fortunately Ernst was extremely kind and careful to keep me informed about the progress. Ernst gave a talk about 2D spectroscopy. And he made some kind of a table with the names, preparation,
Evolution, mixing, detection.
And this was wonderfully clear, but it was followed, I would say, the point of view of the Bishop talk. That means forget about relaxation. And it was so clear that after the talk, I went to Richard and told him, well, there's one item missing in your wonderful table. What about an elementary way to get at a 2D representation of the relaxation matrix? And he said, and his reply was, do you intend to do that? I told him, I don't have the instrumentation, I have other things in solids on my mind. No, I'm not going to do it. And then he said, shall we do it together? I said, oh, okay, yeah.
But I mean, but the pulse sequence now has three pulses. The NOESY and the exchange has 3 pulses. So whose idea was it now to use, to be able to map the relaxation matrix by having a mixing that was with 2 pulses, with the mixing time? I mean, whose idea was that? I mean, to implement it. I mean, to formulate the goal we want to map relaxation in a 2-dimensional sequence.
Well, I think in that very short talk with Richard, and just sketched one way to do it, which in fact is not the way, the best, but just I showed him that it was possible to do it, and to him, to Richard, it was clear how you could change and perhaps improve that in order to make it really work. But
great.
Redfield had asked for 10 minutes extra in the evening session. He was offered the extra, of course, and explained this problem. Unfortunately, the many extremely good ideas of Redfield either are explained in talks which in most cases nobody in the audience understands, or papers which people take years to understand. Anyway, it seemed that it was the case of a talk, and after the talk, there was a question. Does anyone have a question to ask? I had a question which was clear to Redfield, because, well, I knew what was happening. So Redfield answered the question, and okay, that stopped the discussion, and one went to the next item on the agenda. When the session adjourned, Abraham, who had been listening to this, grabbed me and told me, "Did you understand what Redfield was saying?" And I said, "Yes." Okay. He took his agenda and said, "When do you come to Paris to explain that?" I didn't feel under pressure, to achieve something which can be certainly be published, and so that gave me an extravagant freedom.